Down the way that I did, we had it all. We just need to try again. Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. This is going to be a quick call, not as quick as this morning's was, because I do have a story to tell, but I have groceries on the way, and they're supposed to be here in 9 minutes, although looking at where she is and hasn't moved for the last 10, I don't think so. Unless the GPS thingy is not working and she suddenly turns up. We shall see. But anyway, so what were your wins today? What wins did you get to celebrate today? Let us know in the comments below, because we always like to celebrate wins. Today has been a very up and down day. It has been quiet at times. It has been really busy at times. Got to do my accountability call this morning, which I absolutely love doing accountability calls. Got my goals set for the coming week. Talked about how my goals from last week didn't get done because of the genealogy emergency that I had to do over the week, which took up the time that I would normally be working on my goals. So we are moving forward with those goals and just push them out another week. And emergencies happen, and you have to adapt, you have to adjust. Had a busy morning before I got onto the chat, and then got on the chat, and it was steady throughout the day. There were quiet periods and there was busy periods, but it was pretty much steady, very steady flow throughout the day. So that was good. Like I said, I ordered the groceries; they're on their way. So like, oh my goodness. And then we're going to, as soon as the groceries arrive, we're putting the stuff that needs to go in the fridge and freezer in there, and then we're off for our evening walk. So busy evening ahead right now. And then tell your story. Now, I did not get to tell you my story today about who taught me to drive, how old I was when I got my license, and what was my first car. So here we go. You're ready? So that was our question for the day. I know it's like 3 questions in one thing type of thing, but that's okay. No, she still hasn't moved. Well, amazing. Anyway, so my dad taught me to drive to start with, and we had a grass ramp that went down into the backyard. We had like a 1/4 acre or something back there. And so he would get me to go from the driveway down the grass ramp into the backyard, and we'd drive around the backyard just to get started. And then from there, we went over to, he drove us over to the middle school, which had a nice big car parking area and netball courts and all that sort of stuff. So we were able to practice driving around there and on the fields and all of that sort of stuff. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And then for on the road experience, he actually got a friend of his who was a driving instructor to do all that part. And so we would drive all around the place and everything else, and he had me doing really good. And now we had a minivan, and he was teaching me in a car, so slightly different. But when I was backing up, and of course you have to remember I was on the right side of the car, not the left, so I would turn, and with the way his back seat was, there was an indentation I could use to line up to where I had to go for backing. And sometimes when we were driving along, he goes, "What color car was that was parked on the side of the road?" And it's like, damn it, I forgot my mirrors again. So he had ways of checking up to see if I was following my mirrors and everything else. My parents are very wise because they knew that I had terrible test anxiety as well. And so when it came time for me to do my testing, I didn't even know I was being tested. How cool is that? My dad was the local traffic cop, which in New Zealand at the time was like the traffic police. They're the ones that did all the speeding tickets, attended accidents, did the drunk driving thing, all of that sort of stuff. Then you had the police that took care of everything else. So he was the local cop for our area, but it was his day off, so he had a substitute coming in to do the testing in the area. And so Dad invited him up to our place for lunch. Now, we must have been on school holidays or something, because I wasn't at school that day. And they said to me, this is, "Oh, here." The officer said to me, says, "Oh, here, your dad says you're getting ready for your license and stuff." And I went, "Yep." And he says, here's a practice test. Just go sit over there and try it. And I'm like, "Seriously?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." So I went over there and sat down, and, they're sitting there continuing with lunch. I sit down, I do this test thing and hand it back to him, because it was a practice test, so no pressure. Hand it back to him, and he has a look through and goes, and while he's checking through it, he's asking me questions. So, because there's 5 oral questions and like 25 written questions. And so he asks me the 5 oral questions while he's marking off the other one. And then when he finishes marking, he says, "Okay, you passed." I said, "Passed what?" He says, "You just passed your theory." And I went, "Of what?" Total 15-year-old total mind blank. I got tested. What do I get tested for? And he says, "Your driver's license, just passed your theory." And he says, and then he said to, and then him and Dad talked about what time they were going to bring him down bring me down to the where the police station. Actually, it was the council thing. Dad had an office in the council building, and then they would take me for a test drive. For a drive in the minivan. Well, that was an experience. Everything went well, but then he got me to go up to Manakariki Hill, and Manakariki Hill is a very steep hill, and at the top of it is the middle school, and we have they have rules and regulations at the school that there is to be absolutely no riding your bikes up the hill or down the hill. It is so dangerous because it goes right out onto the main road. And my groceries is like about 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes away. Great. Yeah, about a minute. Zephy, patrol. She's so smart with this. And so it took me 3 attempts to do a hill start. I had never done a hill start in the van, never driven up this hill. So I had 2 strikes against me to start with. But I did manage to get it going. I looked in the rearview mirror and says, boy, that was in time. And the cop says, well, I see there's a truck coming up the hill. Because there was a quarry over the other side of the hill. When we came down the hill, I had never driven down. Remember, I'd never driven up the hill, never done a hill start. Now I'm having to drive down the steepest hill in town. And so I start driving down the hill. And at the bottom of the hill, they had this piece of concrete that came out over by the gutter to stop it flowing onto the road, so it would go into the grate at the bottom of the hill. My passenger wheel hit that. And I was stuck there, and I couldn't back up because there was a pickup truck behind me. And I'm trying to back up to get around this thing. I didn't have a lot of maneuverability because of the pickup truck behind me. And finally, I see in the rearview mirror, the guy in the passenger seat taps his mate on the shoulder and points to my passenger seat to say there's a cop sitting there. And so he backed up so I could then back up and get around it. Meanwhile, across the road from there is the doctor's surgery where my mum worked. And there were 2 women sitting outside the doctor's surgery in the car in absolute hysterics because there was only one green minivan in all of town. Remember, population 6,500 people. And they could see the cop in the seat and they knew who was going for their license. My groceries have just arrived. I have to go, but come back in about 10 minutes and we will have part 2 for you. So we're going to do actually it's going to be part 3. So we're going to continue this story. So be right back soon. Don't go too far. See you in 10 minutes.